growing up, me and a friend who lived down the street spent most of our time at a park 4 houses down from mine. We would go there as soon as we possibly could, which would be like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the summer. And we'd stay there through lunch. We'd go home, do lunch, come back, and we'd be there until like 5 or 6. And when we had to go home for dinner. And then we'd be back there until the streetlights came. And in our early elementary school years, it was all consumed with superheroes. We would pretend we had various powers. A good few hours in each morning would be determining which powers we would have and their limitations, the rules for the rest of the day. But strangely, we were as likely to, as much as strapping young boys do this, play house as opposed to fighting world-threatening, villains. We would use our powers, in very quaint ways. You could be this incredible pyrokinetic hero, control the fire, and you'd be cooking. You'd be invisible, but you'd use it to prank your friends. We were using these things in just the smallest of ways. And I think a lot of it was trying to get control over environment. And you're a kid and you don't have much control about what's going on around you. And so you invent these powers so that you're more powerful than your circumstances, at least until the streetlights come on. The conflict between Jeremiah and Hananiah is rooted in this idea that some prophets are playing house and pretending. You have this enormous power entrusted to you, and you're pretending. Jeremiah, in the chapters before this, has been told by God to go out into the temple and put on a yoke to symbolize Israel's submission to a foreign power. Israel, the nation of God, has made a mistake, has worshipped false idols, and for that reason, they are going to be overthrown. They are going to live for a time under the servitude of a foreign power, the Babylonians. And they must accept this servitude, this yoke, for a time, until they can be restored. Hananiah and his brethren say, no, everything is going to be fine. This exile is going to be over soon. It's going to be just fine. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. Why is Jeremiah doing this? And he breaks Jeremiah's yoke in a demonstration of the truth of his own prophecy. He's prophesying peace. The peace of God which was promised, and it's coming quickly. Jeremiah, on the other hand, is wearing the yoke, symbolizing that it will be a long time before everything is okay again. And that's what occasions Jeremiah's thoughts today. He's sarcastic. Oh, I would love for this prophecy of yours to be coming true. But it's not. It's pretending. And so he points out that prophecy, the rules from Deuteronomy about when you should believe a prophecy or not, and what happens to a prophet whose prophecies don't come true. God told Israel, if a prophet prophesies something that doesn't come true, they're not a prophet. Hananiah incidentally dies 2 months later in fulfillment of God's promise that anyone who utters a false prophecy will die. There's a whole section of prophets in the kingdom that are pretending. And Jeremiah tells us that we cannot afford to do this. As Christians, as followers of the way, we refuse to pretend everything is okay when it's not. We face things not as we would have them, but as they are. And we face one another as we truly are. The Christian, like Jeremiah, refuses to pretend and relentlessly and fearlessly engages with ultimate reality, with things as they really are and not as we would want them to be. This is Jeremiah's truth. If we have to wear the yoke, then we will, until the day God breaks it. We celebrate in a few days the 250th anniversary of this country. From the day when the Continental Congress passed the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which are connected with one another, to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which nature's God entitled them. Beautiful! And that ushered in 250 years of freedom and justice and prosperity for all. No. Kind of. The truth that this is a place different. The shining city on a hill can exist alongside the difficult and complicated hard truths of American life. The freedom and justice and prosperity, the ideals of this nation, which we will set off so many fireworks for over the course of the next week, stands alongside the difficult things that we cannot pretend do not exist. Millennials, those born between 1981 and 1996, that makes me an Xennial that straddles Gen X and Millennials, for those of you wondering. They will be the first generation not to be economically better off than their parents. And I was judging against the baby boom generation, which is a historical anomaly, so perhaps it's unfair. But gradually, this country has always counted on the idea that the next generation will be better off than the one before. We will leave a better world to our children than the one we found. And that contract is dying and under threat. More so, Gen Z, those born between 1997 and 2012, will be the first generation, it seems, to whom the Flynn effect does not apply. The Flynn effect chronicles the gradual increase of IQ, cognitive, and communicative abilities over time. They will be the first generation, it seems, for whom that increase will not occur. They will be less equipped to meet the challenges of the next generation than the one that came before. Indeed, 47% of Americans cannot afford a $1,000 emergency. Everything that they do, so much, will be financed by debt. They don't have the cash to make ends meet. They are one emergency, one incident, one accident away from financial ruin. That reality exists under the fireplace. That's not even talking about our complicated history, our difficult choices. It's what's happening now. And we can't pretend that it doesn't exist. Christian and American sees things as they are, not as we would have them. We gave up a life of pretending. I sign on as your rector, not as with the congregation I want, but as the congregation you are. Talented, faithful, dedicated, committed to seeing this sacred space endure. We're celebrating 170 plus years. Depends on when you calculate from the day it was built or the day of consecration. We tend to be by the day of consecration, in which case it's 172 years. But we can't pretend our challenges don't exist. Half of our revenue comes from pledges, from folks like you. 43% comes from our congregations, partners, and clients who share space with us. That makes up 93% of our income. The income you give and the income other congregations give in sharing space fees, 43%. In fact, one revenue source, our major client, gives us 28% of our revenue. And they're in danger of closing. We have a $730,000 mortgage that requires $7,000 plus a month to pay. And our largest source of revenue may be going under. Largest single source of revenue may be going under. It's a difficult challenge. challenging thing. And our status, our calling as Americans and as Christians is to see reality for what it is and meet the challenge faithfully with all that we have been given in talent and commitment and grace. We don't pretend our situation doesn't exist. We faithfully contend with it, confront it, name it, and overcome it. That's what we've been doing for 170 years. That's what we've been doing for 250. But only because we gave up the idea of pretending. We don't meet conditions as we would have them. We meet them as they are. And prophetically, courageously name it and overcome it. We confront things as they are, and we confront one another as we are. Jesus over and over says, in the name of. Whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes the prophet in the name of a prophet, you receive a prophet's reward. If you welcome a righteous person in the name of a righteous person, you get a righteous person's reward. This in the name of was really confusing to me. It's like someone announces, I come in the name of a prophet. Oh, okay, well, then you get a prophet's reward. It means you treat them as they are. Whoever welcomes a prophet because they're a prophet gets a prophet's reward. Who welcomes a righteous person because they're a righteous person gets a righteous person's reward. Whoever welcomes one of these little ones in the name of a disciple because they're a disciple gets a disciple's reward. We don't welcome Jesus as a kind teacher or a religious ethicist. We welcome him as the Word from God, as the very Son of God. We don't welcome prophets because they tell us what we want to hear. We welcome prophets because they confront us with the truths we're too afraid to hear. We welcome the righteous not because they convince us of our own righteousness, comfortable in the idea that they're just like us, but because they show us a better way, another way to live. We welcome people not because of what they can do for us, but because of what they are, children of God, just like us. So we don't confront the world as we would have it. We don't confront people as we would have them. We embrace one another as children of God, not as instruments for our influence, but as an image of God before us. And when we treat one another that way, when we welcome prophets and righteous people and one another, not because of what they can do for us, because they help us pretend, but because they reveal the truth, we're on the right path. We stop pretending with one another. We're finally and forever real with one another, so that we can finally realize our common destiny and we don't lose our reward in heaven or on earth. Because when we treat one another as we truly are, as images of God, we get the real reward at stake. We find in forever joy and peace and grace. We are no longer held in thrall to a world of sin and death. We meet the world as God finally would have it. Justice, joy, peace, and grace. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I acted like a child. I pretended I was a superhero like a child. But I like to think when I became an adult, I left behind childishness. The call of the Christian is to fearlessly and relentlessly engage with ultimate reality. Not to be overcome by one's challenges, but to address them. Surrounded by images of God, built up into the temple God would have us make. There is peace and justice and grace on just the other side of all that holds us down and holds us back. And God comes not to dismiss those things, but to break through those things. And when we follow that word, that righteousness, that image of God, we too will overcome our adversities to become the country, the church, people God would have us be.